the invite, and it's a pleasure to present to Gaelfast and Antrim coaches, and indeed the coaches that have joined in from other counties. One of the benefits, I suppose, from doing stuff like this online is you get a chance now to work in different counties that you probably would not have got a chance in terms of doing the coaching conferences or you know, sessions, once-off sessions due to traveling and things like that. So it's a nice way. I don't think it's it's great to say, but I've kind of become, you know, I've done a few of these now, so I'm picking up a little bit more habits. And what I try to do now is I try to make it as interactive as possible for everybody in terms of having different types of visuals, a few videos and things like that. So I'll try my best to just to, you know, to keep it flowing. If you have any questions, I think we can take them via chat. If you have any messages to Anton, he can stop me halfway through. So what we're trying to do tonight is we're trying to have a look at games-based approach to training for Gaelic football. This, in fairness, now can be applied to the principles of this can be applied to any age groups, and I'll use examples in each, and I hope that you will get something from it and you'll find it interesting. So I'm going to jump straight in, and I'm going to show this brilliant slide that I could have come across years ago as a tutor, and it's basically what our goal is really is when we get our players on the pitch up to certain levels, we want to see, can we arm them with as many of these skills as possible. So you have your perceptual skills, is what you see and what you don't see, okay? You have your visual skills, looking for spatial awareness, eye dominance, dual task, search, your quiet eye, you're using your quiet eye, acuity. Your quiet eye is a little bit like peripheral vision, being aware of what's coming to the side and behind you. Decision making, taking on board the current event profiles, and what action I'm going to put in place, and I'm going to put context to all my decisions. The technical skills, again, all my movement skills, my motor skills, my bilateral skills, very, very important. And then my cognitive skills, which is my sport-specific memory skills, my pattern recognition, my advanced cues, and my recognition skills. So basically, in a nutshell, we could wrap the whole night up saying that game-based training helps us train and upskill our players in as many of these skills as possible. So that's why we're kind of an advocate of skills, of game-based training. So tonight's chat, what we're going to do is we're going to look at why games-based, what is a coach, how module, what is a game. We're going to design some games. We're going to look at blended learning. We're going to have a look at how a session may look like, and I have a few examples for you that you might be able to get your teeth in and work from that. So I think it's very important, just like what I said earlier on, is when you have a group of young men or women in front of you, okay, they take on information in lots of different ways. Some take it visually, some take it audio, some the kinesiology of just doing it, some verbal, and some just with a chat, with a discussion. Also, which I think is a very important point, is that character has to come into it. And what I mean by that is your character and my character changes when we meet people. So if you were walking down the street and you see a couple of people walking towards you and you know that they look a little bit dodgy, your character is going to change on how you meet them. It's the same when you meet and greet your players, okay? If you are bubbly and bright and extending sort of a welcome to them, then they're open to taking on information. But again, what we need to do as coaches is if we can deliver the information in as many different ways as possible, it's a better chance of it sticking with the players. So I think that's a powerful point there. So again, I'm going to be trying to cover a couple of them here tonight. Again, the coaching paradox, right, which we all are aware of, but sometimes we have to reinforce it, okay, is what we need to help people, mostly our coaches, understand and get comfortable with the ultimate coaching paradox, that the more we talk about learning stuff and the less we talk about winning stuff, the better we get at developing excellence, right, and the more likely we are to win. So again, what you have is a case of downstream victims, right? If we don't cater for everybody and if we kind of suspend the will to win and look at development, we have a better chance of having less downstream victims. What I mean, we'll have more players coming through to our clubs and to our counties. And that's difficult to do. I know that. That's very, very difficult to do. But it's really, there's huge proof in that, right? So if we talk less about winning and more about developing, okay, we'll probably end up winning more. Okay, so I think that's an important point for tonight. And again, as I said, we can apply this to anything, but it's always important to mention, right? It's people first, player second. So in the kids' environment, what you have is they're down in your pitch to have fun. Okay, we shouldn't be putting any pressure on them performing. Focus on learning and cooperation. Let them all play, and remember that the run to the litter could be the swan in a few years' time. Over competition is bad for the less athletic and the high achievers because we expect too much from them. Okay, fun, enjoyment, laughter, they all stay involved. As they get older, right, loss and victory becomes more apparent. And if you expand the notion of participation, you keep them involved with your club down the line. They could be in administration roles, management roles, coaching roles. So again, if we look at the person first, player second scenario. So the golden rule for tonight is organise games-based activities. Now, there's a couple of key words here, and one of the key words here is activities, okay? Because people think that the minute you talk about game-based activities, it's games. It is to a degree, but I'm going to talk about that now later on and try to make a little bit of clarity on that. So learning through games-based activities, okay, what we would be looking at is when we're introducing some new skills through game-based activities, we would do them unopposed, semi-opposed, fully opposed, and then try to integrate them into a game. So you have a video here now just to illustrate that. So we have an adult team here now just doing a non-opposed shooting exercise. So there'll be no pressure on these guys. There'll be a chance to explore their techniques, okay, their range, you know, all their handling, their touch, their turning. And here we have a semi-opposed one. Again, it's just done a 1v1 where there's a little bit more pressure on the scale. Again, something similar. You're coming out with your back to the goal, turning, okay, and again, trying to shoot. And then we have it in fully opposed. So again, coming out, right, and now we're turning into a game, okay, a small-sided game, an SSG game, okay, where you have less options, okay, more pressure on you and more decisions to make. And then what we do is we try to spot it in the game and work it in the game. Now, there's a lovely phrase that I heard coaching recently, and it's catch players in rather than catch players out. So when you get a move like that, you can say to your players, remember when we were doing that in training, remember when we were rehearsing that, practicing that. So you catch players in rather than catching them out, and you're reinforcing all the positives. So again, unopposed, semi-opposed, opposed, and a game. So the game scenario is very important for your coaching to fill that void as such of the 4 steps. There's no point in just having a unopposed, semi-opposed, and an opposed activity. That has to be put in place in the game, if you understand me. Right, so why games-based activities? Right, fun in games arises out of mastery. It arises out of comprehension. It is the act of solving puzzles that make games fun. With games, learning is the drug. So that's why games is important. Now, a few people are probably saying, who's Ralph Costa? Well, anyone that has kids that plays Fortnite or FIFA and all this, Ralph Costa was one of the early developers of computer games. But a game is a game, okay? And it involves solving problems, okay? Working things out themselves. So that's what we need to do as well in practice and in training. And we'll talk about that again in a while. So education has at its core the development of character. So while we're setting up games and setting up puzzles on the pitch, okay, we're educating the players, okay? We're pulling them over the wall rather than pushing them over the wall with little nudges and little insets and letting them figure out an awful lot of the actions themselves. We set the tasks, but we really have different meaning to the tasks that are set behind them. So just to go through where we are today, is in the early days, playing was a pastime. In the 60s, right, more people began to play, and it was play the game and run a few laps. Okay, then in the 80s, there was laps, sprints, drills, and play. And into the early 2000s, weights come into it, diet, bonding, okay, and it's still lots of running. Now, I know we're doing lots of running at the moment, but there's a feeling out there from about 2010 to 2013, modern football, as we know it today, was kind of born. And what happened was the game became the main thing again. So it was reinstated. We had some brilliant coaches that started coming through the ranks, and they start putting the game as the main thing again. So this is important, and I'm going to refer to this a few times tonight. This is what you are, right? A coach is a person who builds competencies by assisting and challenging players and yourself to achieve their potential. Now, the very fact that you've given up a Wednesday night to come and pick up a few things, say that show that you're willing to challenge yourself. And the reason you're probably doing that is so you can challenge your players. So hopefully we can give you a few tips on that. So that's what a coach is. Now, when they arrive down to the field, okay, we have this thing called the conscious competence learning matrix. And basically what it means is when they arrive to you, okay, at 6 or 7 or whatever age, they're unconsciously incompetent. They become consciously incompetent, consciously competent, and then unconsciously competent. So what the hell does that mean? So we go through it again, and this is what we're really talking about. So when they arrive, I don't know what I don't know. So they're unconsciously incompetent. Okay, after a while, I know what I don't know. So they're beginning to discover things. Okay, consciously competent, I apply what I know. Unconsciously competent, I apply what I know without thinking. Now, as a coach, that's what we need to do is spot that that's the struggle that every player must endure. And our job is to get them out of that hole up onto unconsciously competent. Okay, that could be the flow state, that could be anything like that, where a player is just performing the skills without even thinking, all coming natural. And again, the reason we put these slides up is because game-based activities give the players the best opportunity to become unconsciously competent. So the How to Coach module, what we're looking at here is just a couple of tips and ideas to give you when you're setting up your practice and when you're coaching. So first thing is to build rapport. That's very, very important, okay? Getting players' names, okay? Ask them how they're doing. Again, body language, everything. We have to learn how to observe, analyze, okay? Demonstrate, explain, and feedback. Feedback is very important, okay? And it's a two-way thing, but you won't improve unless there's feedback being given both to yourself and to players. So that's the How to Coach module. So for that, the main thing is that the main thing is the main thing. And again, in their scenario, the main thing is the game. So in effective coaching, right, all human activities, 80% of the results flow from 20% of the activities. And that's very, very important because that should be planned, that should come into your session planning. So there's a lot of stuff that we throw in our session plans and there's not a lot of results getting out of it. So again, the game would probably be where the most learning is coming from. And we'll explain that later on when we get chatting about it in a few minutes. So this is really important too, all right, and it ties in. When we have them all in the huddle, right, we speak to them like, okay, so get with a partner and practice the chest pass. Remember to keep your elbows out and step forward as you extend your arms towards your partner. And once you can pass accurately, we will try to put that into a game. So what the kids hear is just blah, 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 game. So lots of coaches now would perform little activities like when they arrive down to the pitch, they would give the kids a ball and they say, I'll be out to you in a few minutes. And you'll probably find that the majority of kids start playing a game. So that's the feedback that they're giving to us, that they want to play a game. Okay, so they're down in the pitch, they're down in their training to play a game. So what have these got in common? They're all games. Okay, so there's lots and lots of different types of games out there. Okay, and kids just want to play games. They want to solve the problems. They want to be challenged. They want to play games. Okay, so what is a game? So a game is an activity that has a set of rules, an agreed scoring system, a decision-making process, okay, and an opposition. So this is important for us when we're designing games. So there's lots of different types of games. There's field games, court games, target games, wall games, board games, card games, computer games, and fun games. And they all have what we just looked at in that previous slide. Okay, so the games-based coaching module that we would be looking at tonight is this. Okay, so you play the game, you freeze the game, you fix the skill, you fuel the will, and you resume the game. Now, it's important to note that there's lots of different, anyone that's familiar with the Ulster Council's policy, I think they might have something called whole part whole, where they play a game and then they do some activities and then they play a game. So basically what we're looking for here is, like, most training sessions should have the game as a central part of the training sessions. Now you can put that at the start of the game and at the end of the game, or you can put it at the middle of the game. So when we're speaking about this game-based module, we're talking about the game part that's in the session, and I'll explain that again shortly. So the game-based module could look something like this. You play the game, okay, you freeze the game, you fix the skill, you fuel the will, and you resume the game. So when we're playing the game, we're observing and analyzing, okay? Right, then when we freeze the game, we're going to demonstrate and explain and try to fix the skill. Okay, we're going to build rapport, give encouragement, and give feedback, and resume the game. Now, that module is very important, right? So you could be playing a game and you're specifically working on some area of your game plan or of what you want to improve the players. So first, you're putting them through a game-like scenario with the view of probably the high catch. So you play a game and you'll be spotting the high catch, and then you freeze the game, and then you might have some activities set aside to work on the high catch, okay? And you'll go and do them, and then you give some encouragement, and then you go back into the game. So that's a game-based coaching module, and that can be used for nearly any skill. So by playing the game, you're challenging the players. By freezing the game and fixing the skill, you're assisting them, okay? And then by going back to the game, you're setting a higher challenge to see how the skills that you worked on or the points that you made, have they improved on. So again, you're a person who builds competencies by assisting and challenging the players and yourself to achieve the potential. So that module ties into that statement. So I don't know if you know this guy, right? I don't really know him myself. He might be on the way to Cheltenham, but what he has there is a very important tool that we all have, and it's a set of binoculars, okay? But our binoculars should look like something like this. So when we're analysing and observing, right, we're looking for the 3 T's and the 3 P's. We're looking for team play. We're looking for the technical ability. We're looking for the tactical awareness. We're looking at the psychology of our players, our physical fitness, okay, and the playing facts. And we need to take all them on board when we're planning games. So again, the game-based coaching module, play the game probably for 10 or 15 minutes. Freeze the game, so we have a quick chat for 2 or 3 minutes. Fix the skill, you could have a couple of stations where they all practice something for 3 to 5 minutes. Fuel the will, give them a bit of encouragement, and we resume the game. So what makes an activity a game? So an agreed set of rules, a scoring system, an opposition, okay, and something that will make them make decisions. So a decision-making process. So for designing games, what we're looking at is doing is picking a skill. So what I've done here now is working off the 3 T's and the 3 P's. I picked the high catch is the game that I want to work on, right? So we've identified with a few technical proficiencies or efficiencies with the high catch. So the tactical prowess that we're going to tax in this game is decision making. Okay, the team play that I'm going to tax is the support play. So this is all about me designing the games, okay? And I'm designing this game to improve the high catch. So the physical fitness that we'll be getting out of it would probably be speed endurance, because it's kind of going to be a tight pitch. Psychological focus would be concentration, because they're going to tire very, very quickly. And the playing facts, how we record it, is whichever team gets the highest amount of catches. So what it is really is it's just a game and that we designed and made ourselves to work on the high catch. Perfect for young ages, okay? So there's what you're going to see is you're going to see a video of 4 different grids with 3 versus 3 in each, okay? And the performer was called the high catch. So it's simply an overhead throw and an overhead catch. Now any age group can play this. So again, yellows are trying to keep the ball out of blues from the other. So it's a 1v1. So it's just a high throw and a high catch, but it's in a game scenario, okay? So what you have here is lots of movement. You're learning how to catch the ball while being challenged by a player. The ball is only coming from the height of your peers. So it's not a coach throwing it to a kid or kicking it way up in the air. A really, really good game, this, okay? Lots and lots of touches, right? Very, very relevant. So I would leave them on for about 90 seconds, okay? So there's a couple of games you play along that way. But that would be now to try to coach and improve the high catch. So what will happen here is now we're after playing that game. So I'm after observing and analysing. So I'm observing to see what is, okay? And I'm analysing to see what is causing the game to break down. Right? I'll pick up one area and I'll see what I can help. and I'll design something, an activity to see can I fix that skill. So if you were watching that, you'd probably say high catching is decent in most of them, but a couple of players might be struggling. So what I'll have to do there is I have to demo away when I'm fixing the skill. So if it's a technical breakdown, it's more than likely either their head, hands, or feet is in the wrong position. So that's when I wear my binoculars, that's what I'm looking for and I'm observing. So I'm going to try to fix the skill. I'm going to try to look at the tactical breakdown of it. Okay, is there somebody blocking him? Right, is he not getting enough support? Is there not enough movement? Okay, so I'm looking at all them sort of things when I'm designing the game. So again, remember now we played that game and we've stopped it. Okay, so we're going to set up an intervention plan. So this intervention plan, if you're lucky enough to do it on the pitch, you can do it. You can give the player some takeaway work to do on their own. So it can be simple handling work, individual practice, knocking the ball off a wall, small-sided games, catch count games, medicine ball to improve their wrist strength and hand strength. So what I've done here is, again, one of the players, we have an intervention plan there. So we weren't happy with things like his takeoff, okay, his soft elbows or his head position. So we just came up with an intervention plan where we just worked with a rebounder for him to catch. And we really do it, okay? And what we've done is we put it in slow motion as well, so you'll see that shortly. So we're fixing the skill here now. So again, you can see what we're looking for. We're looking for pushing off both feet, okay, soft elbows and head position. So this is your intervention plan, right, where we would, before we would go and put them back into a game. You know, like very, very simple. Now, if you hadn't got the rebounders, you can easily do it just with fellas throwing, coaches throwing balls, or you know, players preferably throwing balls to each other rather than coaches. Because if you're working with young players, coaches generally throw the balls far too high for them. So that's the intervention plan that we would have set after watching that game and observing that game and noticing that certain breakdowns of skills was happening. So we have an intervention plan there. So again, we build rapport, we fuel the will, okay, and we generate feedback. So we've acknowledged his effort to get improved. Again, always use first names. We've acknowledged his effort to get better, and everything's gone through back. We've given information and stats like saying that you've got a much better drive now off your left foot, okay, and that your finger position is really, really good. We'll ask them, do they agree? Is there anything that they notice? Okay, and we listen to what answers they have back. And then we have them ready to go back. So fuel the will. Okay, a lot of people are probably saying, what's fuel the will? So I kind of got this video just to show you.
The children's position. Head down, buttocks up. Everybody on your mats. Oh, yeah, that's good. That's good. Very nice posture. Yes. Encouragement. So I will transfer you my energy. I will transfer my karma. Here is my karma on you.
Jason!
You have a great aura. Yes.
Jason!
Encouragement. Yes.
So it's very important, right, to fuel the will. Plenty of encouragement, using the names, okay, maybe not touchy-feely, but again, you have to be able to fuel the will for the players. So freeze the game, okay, and the wordy struggle that every player must endure. Again, we need to fuel the will. So they master the skill, they control the emotion, right, and they can cope with adversity. So that's what we're trying to do through game-based activities. So then we resume the game, and what we have then in our locker is we've got a couple of models to change. So you have the step principle, okay, where space, time, equipment, and players. So if you look at that game that I showed you earlier on, we could remove the center cones and have a 12v12 if you want. Okay, that changes the dynamics of that game. We could make it smaller. We could put 30 seconds to see how many catches they can get. So there's lots of ways of developing games of that through the step principle, or again the crop principle, okay, where we change the conditions, the rules, right, or to give more opportunities and have more purpose to the game. So a couple of takeaway messages from there. So again, game-based coaching module: play the game, freeze the game, fix the skill, fuel the will, and resume the game. So observe and analyze, demonstrate, okay, and explain, build rapport, and generate feedback. So we challenge the players, we assist them, okay, to get over that challenge, and then we set them a higher challenge. So that's how we would coach through games-based coaching. And again, you being the coach, you're a person who will build competencies, and you'll assist and challenge players and yourself to achieve your full potential. So just moving on from that now, again, that's the game-based module that we will be trying to put in place. So This is interesting now. It's called the banana-rama effect. It ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. I'm not sure if we have anybody that's fans of the banana-rama, but if you look at this, you start anywhere on this hexagon, right? You practice, you observe, you evaluate, you give feedback, you modify your practice, and you go again, okay? So it just keeps going round and round and round. Now, again, what I'm talking about here can be anything. You've identified the high catch, you've identified the 30-meter foot pass, you've identified the hand pass. This is how we do it. We practice it, we observe it, we evaluate it, we give feedback on how to improve it, we modify it, and we go again. So if you can picture a skill that you want to work on. So the 5 W's and H, right, which I love, and it's when, why, what, who, and where. And I like to show this clip. Okay, if you look on the left-hand side, you'll just see it's a simple shooting exercise, okay? And what's important about the likes of this is before we move on to the session plans and things like that, why I like to show this is because, again, you need games-based activities are can be anything, right? So what we have here is we're trying to create a scenario, right, where a player with his back to the goal has to deal with a horrible ball, a bad ball to his feet, and he offloads as quick as possible to a man who's running in to support it. Now, this might happen every 2 or 3 games, but if you organise an activity like this, players might get 10 or 12 opportunities to work on that skill, right? Dealing with the poor ball, timing his run off the shoulder, okay? Another thing about it, right, which I get a lot of people kind of questioning is, right, yes, there's a lot of people in lines here for this, but this is a couple of nights before a big match. So your RPEs will be quite low. So again, you have to take it into context. But what I wanted to show was a game-based activity. So basically, if you look at the diagram, right, you'll see you've got 3 stations, right? 1 and 2 are feeding A, and B is the shooter. So when 1 feeds A, okay, B will come and take it off A and shoot for the goal, right? A moves out of there, and 1 now has replaced him, and 2 becomes the feeder. So I'll just play it now, and you can see it. So what I've done quite simply is you can see some of the balls in are very, very poor. So there's a player running and he's collecting it, and the shooter has to time it to take his to take the ball off him. So there's a lot of movement in it, and it's really, really good. And the practice and finishing skills. So we've loads of opportunities to coach in this. Okay, loads of opportunities. But what I've done in this is, okay, I started it really, and it's totally unopposed. And then I progress it to semi-opposed, and I only want token pressure on it because, as I said to you, it's before a big match, right? So we didn't want any players getting a hurt. But what we wanted to do, we wanted to pressurize the shooter, the man receiving the ball. Okay, so you can see that, like, this happens quite often in games, that type of ball with a late runner coming in. One man feeds him and he has to deal with a poor ball to his feet, and all he can do is offload it. You can see that even some lads, even when they're trying to play it bad, are playing it bad. But the point is, they have to deal with a poor ball, and they've only got one option, which is probably to offload it. Now you can see it, how it's progressed is there's token pressure on, okay? So there's 2 players coming from the middle, okay? And that's putting pressure on the man receiving the ball who's going to shoot. Now, that's a game-based activity, right? So what we have in that scenario is players will be saying, when does this happen? Why do we do it? What should I do? Who and where? So that's what the coaching is in this, okay? We can throw all these scenarios at the players. Now, again, as I said to you, that mightn't happen if you played a full 30-minute or 40-minute game within your squad. This might happen once or twice in the game. But by running an activity like this, okay, you're going to get this done lots and lots of times. So the players have a chance to explore it, okay, and give you feedback, what worked well, what didn't, how would I improve it. And that's how I would develop a lot of these activities, is on the bounce from them players to say, Colm, would you try this or would you try that? Okay, so again, what we're looking for there is to support the player who's got a poor ball with his back to the goal and get off his shoulder as quick as possible. And I put a little bit of pressure on that now. So I think that's important. I wanted to show that in the context of, right, that could be done early on in the session, and then when you're playing a game, you'd be looking to see, did anybody make them similar runs? Did anybody put what they kind of rehearsed into practice there? So I'm going to touch on this now, blended learning, okay? And blended learning basically is basically when you coach the team and you've identified patterns and you've worked on game plans and you want to see, can you get them into the games? Now, it has to be a two-way street here. There has to be a thing called pitch power, I believe in. And what pitch power is the power comes from the pitch, which is the players. So they will tell you, you know, what's the best way to blend this in. If it's worthwhile doing, are they getting something from it? So what I have here is a game-based session plan. Now, session plans change, so people get bogged down in session plans. So I don't really want to go too much detail into these, except I want to highlight a couple of things. So it's fairly standard, but if you look at 745, you have an area called the recall segment. Now, particularly if you're in the middle of your season, right? A recall segment is where the players take over and for 15 minutes, they recall the recent learnings or gameplays or plans. So it's fairly open. You're giving ownership over to them. But sometimes if you are working on a particular area and they haven't improved on it, right, the whole session, the rest of your session, doesn't have to stick to this plan. You can spend the rest of the time working on what you were trying to improve on. So I think a recall segment is quite modern and it's very apt and important, okay? And again, you can give that to any players, young players or anything. Give them 10 minutes to say, right, remember last week we worked on such and such. How do we improve that? But the one I want to focus on, again, is the yellow, the highlighted one. So what we've done is we work on a lot of, I'm sure you are familiar with, basically empty out and fill in, okay, skill refinement game. But what empty out and fill in is basically movement, right? It happens all over the field. It's where players vacate some space and other players move into space. And what we're trying to do is that creates little pods and packs for you to deliver the ball and move in, and it moves the opposition around the pitch. So you start speaking with that type of language, people kind of look for it more. And we've even titled our session here tonight, empty out, fill in work. So that's the most important thing. So if you look at even the whole session is kind of broke down there, you see a full game. So an awful lot of the exercises that we have here is games. Okay, you see my handling games, okay? You see the skill refinement game. We're doing a little bit of 1v1, what we were showing there, that scoring exercise, okay? And then we have a tactical full game where we might set one team up tactically against the other. But it's a game-based session plan, okay? So the belly of the session is game-based. So the game we're playing looks like this. So again, I started off in two different in two different ways. I've made a small-sided game where you have pitch divided into two, okay, and in each pitch you have 3 squares, right, and you must deliver a ball into them, right. Now this is a game we create ourselves, and again, if you remember the earlier slides, you were probably kind of saying to yourself, God, where's he going with this design of the games and things like that, right? So this is what we're trying to show you now. We're trying to show you how you go about the design of games and why are they the best games, because they're the best games because when they're bespoke, they match what you have, they match your teams, they match who you're playing against, they match your level of development, okay? Like them handling games that I play a lot of, I play a lot with underages, from 8, 9 and 10-year-olds with them, because they are relevant to their ability, and again, it's their peers that they're playing, they're throwing the ball to and from. So again, your games are going to be based on what's in front of you. So if you were to take this game away and try to apply it to your 10s or 12s, it might not work. But if you take the principles away of saying, right, we want to develop a running game, a kicking game, or really what we want to develop is everything, okay, you will play some of these games. So in this game here, what the players must do is keep possession, and what they're trying to do is put a foot pass, even a hand pass, into one of the boxes for one of their players to run onto and receive. And when he gets that, he gets a free shot to deliver it out. Okay, and then what we do is we progress it into, we move the line and we play one big game, right, where we have 6 boxes there, the full team. So I'll try to, hopefully these will show you. And again, know your why. Why do we do it? So you'll see the way the pitches are, you get a grip of it. So it's all in, right? You can suspend some parts of it if you want to improve other parts, like take away the touches and things like that. So that's not a score because he didn't receive it in the box, okay? So he's trying to get the ball away there now. He's no options, okay? And he gives it away, right? So now the oranges have to try to keep the ball. So his head is up, he's looking, okay? And he's trying to put it into a box. That wasn't in a box, it was in between boxes. So there's a perfect ball there now, into the box with a player running into it. So he gets a chance to restart that game. Okay, so he's looking. Now, again, remember what I was saying to you about catching players in. We could play this for 10 or 15 minutes, but we only get 2 or 3 key points out of it, right? But when we get them, we make sure that we highlight it to the players and explain exactly why we want, ask them what do they think. Okay, so again, moving into the box, but again, it wasn't a perfect spot or a perfect pass. So you can see what they're doing. Okay, he gave it away. Now this is the part, right? This is the money shot, as they call it. Now that's the ball we're looking for. okay? So again, like everything else, tying him with a new mark, he can play it from there, or he can run it, or he can do what he wants. So again, it takes a couple of minutes for that game to get up and running, but you get what you want from it. So again, what it really is, it's rehearsing the game within a game. I think that's very important. So we're trying to catch players in. So this just might make it a little bit clearer of what we're trying to do. Again, here's the ball, this shot that we're looking for. This is the pass we're looking for, okay? So the orange player is looking. He takes his eye off the ball, so it allows the yellow player to sneak in behind him. And again, to put this into context, we have similar movements, similar spaces, and a similar pass. So that's rehearsing the game within the game. Again, we let this run a little bit. You see the same thing. Again, what we're looking for here, all right, we're looking for a good ball in, and we're looking for kind of players' movement, emptying out of one space into another space. So you see that just timed perfectly into that box. So how does that tally in here? And we're trying to swing the ball and move the ball. Okay, this player has his head up, okay, and he's after looking for that player inside movement, and almost comes off perfect. So catch players in. So when we're doing that type of work, okay, we explain to them why we're doing it, okay? And so if you go back to the games that we played, they're simple possession games that, right, that might be part of the 20% that's going to be the most effective of your session that night, right? And it's to illustrate and to point out a message, okay, and the learnings, and again, working with your players, pitch power, right? What you have then is good feedback from both sides working on it. So looking at this, a simple graphic that we often use as well is the empty out fill in from kickouts to forward movement. You can just see as players move and vacate one area, another player can move into it. So this goes back to what I was showing you at the start about how we can take on information and, you know, the visuals that we must, show to players to try to get them to learn. So it can be done in graphics, it can be done in stills, it can be done in games where we played it and we discuss it, okay, and we get feedback from it. So that's how we take on the information. So again, nearly done. So tonight's takeaways, right? What you're looking at here basically is you start with the end in mind, okay? So when you're planning your training session, what am I looking to get out of this training session, right? You see and setting and coaching. So you're going to set the scene as a coach, okay? But you're not telling them what to do. You're just setting the scene. You've got performance parameters, right? So what the standards that you want to set and what you're hoping to get out of it. The key is game-based activities, but I think it's important people try to take on board that it's game-based activities isn't always a game, right? It could be a part of the game that you've snipped out that you want to work on, okay? And that's what the game is, okay? So observe, analyze, right, and intervene. The intervention is vital. So again, when we're looking at the player working off the rebounder, okay, now there's many ways of doing it, right? I'm hopefully people can pick up what I was meaning there is that, right, if you have a player and they're struggling with the high catch, you have to pull them aside, okay? You can do it in a group. You can have a couple of sessions or a couple of stations set up to work on the specific area, or you might even have to go a little bit deeper and do that little one-on-one session with them, okay? Design bespoke games. I think that's very, very important. So whatever your philosophy is and how you want the game played, or if you're coaching younger players and you want to cover all the skills, try to come up with games that are going to encompass tackling, foot passing, right, instep passing, all that sort of stuff, hand passing, everything, okay, right, blend in activities, right? So the thing about like that game that we were showing, the empty out, the fill in game, that's a blend in game, okay, where you're going to be looking to take part of that game, and when you see it done in the game, you highlight it to the players and you say, look, that's it. So the activity is blending into what we're trying to do, okay, and that's your blended learning. Know your why, which is very important. Like, know why we're doing these exercises and make sure the players know why they're doing them as well. That's very, very important, okay? Fuel the will, encouragement, okay? You always have to be positive, okay? And finally, some of the most important things, again, this vital ingredient, if you can see these. Probably the most important ingredient for any age group. There has to be fun. And players will come up with their own Players will get their own fun. They'll have their own crack. If you look at the last one that's playing there now, slingshot. Again, all we might be targeting here for that night is a bit of crack, right? It's a night before a game or 2 nights before the game. They're not ready. They've taken on board all the information. They don't need any more from us, right? So all we need to do is lighten the load, have a bit of crack, pass the time. So I'd be a big believer in adding some fun to the session. So you can see the way the lads down below are swinging the slingshots, right? It's just a simple kickmaster ball and a net, light tennis, large tennis ball. So we're not going to hurt the players, but they think they're getting agility work and peripheral vision and spatial awareness work out of it. And so if it works for them, very good. So now that's more or less it. So you've got questions, and there's my contact details. You can get me on that email address. You can. I'm on all the socials, and I'd be sharing a lot of information. I enjoy sharing information because I get a lot back from it. Some of the stuff that we have showing you there tonight, you've probably seen before, but a lot of people will contact with different versions or different ideas of how to add to that sort of stuff. So again, I hope you got something out of it. I hope it didn't keep us too long. It's about 45 minutes. We went through a lot of stuff there, so I'd be quite happy now if Anton, if you want to, if we want to open the floor to any questions or whatever.
Yeah, we do that. So I suppose what we did last week and it worked well was if anybody's any questions, what we can do is they can type it into the chat box, and anything that comes up then I can ask you, because there's 100 people in the chat now. It would save 100 different people on muting at once. So while people are chatting, Colm, maybe I go first.
Yeah.
Your point about rehearsing a game within a game. When you go to work on set pieces, let's say be that when I go to work on set pieces with a team, it's hard to know how much you instruct where the set piece goes, and how much you allow the players to have that sense of creativity, be that an advanced mark with their forward line from a long range free, or a certain way of playing from a sideline ball. How much of a percentage do you hold in you instructing the players to play a certain way? And then alternatively, how much do you allow the players to create their own runs as a group of attackers or a team?
Great question. And like, again, one of the points that I made tonight there was scene setting as a coach. So like most of us as coaches, we're always looking at the game, looking at the top teams and spotting some of the things we're doing. So what I like to do is I try to set the scene in game training, in game-based training for the lads, where I'm teasing. Like for instance, if I'm working on V-cuts, if I want them to work on V-cuts, I will do an activity where every player is making a V-cut or an L run, and we'll explain that to them, right? And then I say to them, right, how could you put that into a game? And that's when I kind of hand it over to them and let them put their take. So what I would do a lot of that is I would give a lot of it's again, it goes back to the players bring the energy to the session. The players are the energy of your team. So you need to tap into that. If you're not giving them a voice, or if you're not allowing them expand their creative energy and juices, well then it's not going to really be bespoke enough. So what I do is I set the scenes, if you understand, and I let them develop it. But again, like I'll be watching our games and other games and we'll be saying, right, we need to work on such and such. So then I start off by setting the scene like that. And we would have that recall segment. So the next night we go through that and we say, remember, what was the point of our session last week was V cuts and L runs. You take it over now for about 15 minutes and work on them. Okay. And again, if they're mastering them, we leave it at it and we cut it short and we move on. But if they can't get it, we might suspend what we were going to do in the rest of that session, and just carry on working on something that hasn't stuck. And that's particularly very, very important for younger teams, because if they haven't taken on board what you're trying to work on, there's no point in you introducing nothing else and new. Do you know what I mean? So your recall segments will kind of show that and bring that to the fore,
Yeah, great. We had a question just around the slides, and if the slides would be made available. I'm recording the session anyway, so I can share that link with everybody after.
Yeah, and I can, if they want, if people want to email me or that, I'll certainly be able to send a PDF version of the slides out. You know?
Perfect. That'd be great. If there's any more questions, folks, feel free to put them into the chat box. None so far, Colm. I wonder, I'll maybe go on to another one then. For somebody like yourself who's taken an inter-county team, we obviously we got an announcement today in and around the season isn't exactly going ahead anytime soon. Certainly not until after Easter. If you were in charge of a club team, like most people will be on this, what kind of things would you be working on specifically with those players when you get them back on the field? Let's take it two segments. One, I know that I've seen some senior coaches on here from clubs, but I've also seen some youth coaches, the real ones missing out, not getting to be on the pitch at the minute. So what two different things for those would you be looking to do with those players?
Well, what I would do, like again, coming from the experience of the previous lockdown as well, like I'd be a big believer like that, as much as possible with the ball. So what I would be doing an awful lot when we got back is as much ball as possible. Even now, right now, with the media players, we would send them out videos of skill videos from the work on, right? So we have they have their S&C, they have their running programs. But I'm kind of pushing that they get 2 or 3 ball sessions in a week, 30 minutes, 35 minutes if they can, out in the local parks or anything. Most players can. Most players have a brother and sister they can go and kick with, and they're lucky for that. So again, for younger players, particularly, now I would class younger players. The child strand is anything up to 13, and the youth strand is up to 16. So anything up to 16, I was just thinking, as soon as you get back in the pitch, has to be certain ball, has to be all ball activities, has to be game-based work. Again, running around as much as possible with a ball in the hand. And again, believe it or not, same thing with the adults. Like when we get back with me, please God, we might have to put in something like a double session on a Saturday, right? And on that double session will be totally kind of predominantly tactical work, right? You won't be putting pressure, but they could be on their feet for up to 4 hours, really, right? With a split in the middle, just doing tactical work. So again, from my point, it would be as much as possible. Younger players, total ball work. Older players, if you haven't got the time, there has to be a good tactical element in it in terms of walkthroughs and stuff like that. So that's what I'd be doing for both of them, you know.
Brilliant. Cheers. We have a question in there. So any tips to make games for juveniles as fun as possible? So is that competition based? Will you include winners and losers and things like that on it?
Yeah, I'm a big believer of one of the most important games in soccer for developing players is rondos, and there is rondos in Gaelic football, believe it or not. Like one of my favourite games is a game called the wall pass game. Now that can be a 60-meter, it depends what numbers you have, it's 60-meter square, okay, and in each you have 4 kind of jokers that stand in the middle of each line, and what they are is they're a wall, meaning that if you give them the ball comes back to that team, okay. Now the players are static, the people on the wall are static, they could be your coaches, okay. And in that game, what happens is you get all the skills in a game-based scenario. You get all the movements, you get all the tackling skills, you get all the evasion skills, you get everything in it, okay? And the players love it, okay? So what we do is we would make it kind of as competitive as we can in terms of 10 or 12 consecutive passes, and the opposition must do a burpee or something like that. So the likes of that competition is enough, really. Like I wouldn't be too keen into punishing a team for not winning or losing, but you need some sort of edge to it. So when you're playing the likes of them possession games, either a time or limit on it or a number of possessions to score is to me is enough for that. Okay, not necessarily winners or losers, right? A couple of things I would imagine most players would be looking to, our coaches would be looking to develop a culture early on. So I'm sure most players tidy up after each coaching session. If not, what I do is if a team loses a certain game, they must pick up all the the cones and the bibs and put them back in and help out that way. Now, I'm sure most teams do that anyway. Look. So little things like that is what I do, but certainly for juveniles, you know, that's as far as I do with in terms of winning and losing, you know.
Brilliant. Another one there is just any advice or skills challenges for young children that can be carried out at home on their own, you know, over the next week or next wee while until collective training starts.
Absolutely. No, I would I have 3 boys myself, various different ages, and we'd always be out messing. So I would have put stuff out before via the social media channels, right? One of the ones I love doing for kids is the double ball, the complex skills as they're called. It's just soloing and hopping and with your left side and your right side using 2 balls at a time. And I've got videos out there of lads out on the road in front of our house just doing them. Okay. Another thing that I do with a lot of them is one of the ones we're working at the moment with a 20-year-old is sitting on a chair, okay, and a ball being thrown over his head out in the road or the grass, where he must, without using his hands, get off the chair, okay, and just win that ball. And what that does is that develops that couple of yards that we're all looking for. Okay, and you're isolating your skills. You're really isolating your lower half of your body to explode. Okay, so you're getting a few benefits from that. But even if you only had 50 meters of a road there, okay, you could be working on, which I think is the most important skill at the game now, is a 30-meter pop pass. Okay, so again, one end to the other, left foot and right foot, just popping passing. Okay, but one of the things that if you're doing something like that, what you need to do with your son or daughter is have things like have him or her with his back towards you, have him getting off the ground, have him throwing a ball up in the air and catching it before he kicks it. That way, you're just putting a little bit of pressure on the kick, if you get me. But there's lots of stuff you can do if you just think about it. You don't need a lot of space. You know, if you're lucky enough to have a ball and a road or a patch of grass, you can do a few of them things. So there's a couple of things. Would be your 2 balls, solo and hopping, dummy solo. You're getting off the chair to react to a ball that might be thrown over your head or under the chair, and a 30-meter pop pass.
Great. Look, with 3 more questions, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
If you have any advice for games for juveniles, so whether they should be small-sided games or should they be larger games?
Yeah. Now, see, what you need to do is, again, as I was trying to say, right, it's whatever is applicable to you, right? So say we have a group of under 10s and you've got 24. Well, what I like to do then, as much as possible, is have 2 sets of 12s, because it's all about touches at that stage. So the most touches you can get possible. That handling game that I showed you there, I'd also use that for tight hand passing, a bounce pass game, and a rugby type pass game. And it's all about touch and handling there. Now, if you have a 3v3 in a 20-meter square area, they're going to get a lot of touches. Again, now it's only going to develop a certain amount of skills with them. It's only going to develop their touch and maybe their movement, their short movement. So again, to progress that, you would move it on to kind of some sort of a game that includes foot pass. So what I'd be saying for the likes of that is we can all come up with hand passing games. If you look at even some teams warming up before matches, they predominantly just hand pass, right? Where we need to be able to come up with some games where you can have the foot passing into it. So again, I would just extend that, and you play your type of rondo. You might play an 8 versus a 6, or if you make a team uneven, so the team with the lesser number has to work hard to turn the ball over. And if you suspend one part of the game, i.e. allow the team in possession have no touches, just to must pass it straight away, you're putting pressure on their skill set. You can put things like 9 foot passes and 1 hand pass equals a score. So again, you're playing a 10v10. They must pass the ball to each other via the foot 9 times and are allowed 1 hand pass to get 1 score. So they're great little games for developing skills, and they're called, as you say, as we talked about here, that they're game-based games for refining skills.
Brilliant. So look, we'll take the last 2 that we had in there. So what are the best games activities, or the games-based activities to develop forwards, interplay, and movement?
Okay. What we need to do is, like an awful lot of like the great Kerry coach Pat O'Shea used to coach forward movement. Like, he would insist that you show for the ball 3 times, saying that you mightn't get it once the first run, you might not get it the second time, but there's a good chance if you make the 3rd run, you'll get it. So as the ball comes into the middle third of the field, that's when you want your forwards movement. So again, when we spoke earlier on about V cuts and nail runs, they're just fancy names. You can have different types of movements on them. You can have your lightning strike runs, you can have your tree runs, okay? But what I often would do if I'm looking to develop that type of movement is if you cone off the middle third of the ball or middle third of the pitch and you're playing a full-sided game, is that the ball must be delivered by the foot from that middle third into the forwards. So two things happen there, okay? The team in possession will try to work the ball into a favourable position to play it into the forwards, and the forwards must move. They must show. Okay, so that's what we would do to sort of develop that type of game. And again, it's in conjunction with the players. Again, what I mentioned there earlier on, if you catch players in, because if you see a player making that lightning strike run or the V cuts or the L cuts, right, why not stop the game, freeze the game, fuel the wheel, and ask him to explain what he did. And most times he'll turn around and he'll say something like, that's what I always do. Right, and you say, well, we'll explain to the rest of the lads what you do. And that's a powerful coaching moment, I think, when things like that happen. So there's a game that I would do if I'm looking to improve that. I would just cone off the middle third of the pitch, that either side of the end of the pitch in front of the goals has to be, the ball has to be delivered in by the foot. So that'll encourage movement for that.
Brilliant. So we've another one that's probably the other end of the scale now, just in regard to helping 5, 6 and 7-year-olds. Kieran Goggins gets them to help them bounce the ball off their knee before they get the solo. Have you any other tips for young kids trying to transition across to the solo?
Yes. One of the best ones, okay, again, so you get the appropriate size ball. That's the most important thing, your first touch ball or whatever it is, and keepy uppies. If you get a kid in your kitchen or out in your garden, right, and you get them to keep you up ball, like soccer style keep you up, because what a keep you uppie is a solo, right? Your foot contact is exactly the same as your solo on the ball. You're turning your toes up a little. You're trying to get it off the laces, okay? You're trying to have a delicate touch that it doesn't come too high, because when you're practicing a keep you uppie, okay, you're trying to keep it up to a certain height that you can adjust your feet to kind of get the next keepy uppie. So keepy uppie is a brilliant way of developing the solo. And the thing about keepy uppie is you'll use both feet. And you watch young kids doing a keepy uppie, the ball won't come much higher or should not come much higher than their hips. And that's the perfect height for a solo. So keepy uppies is what I'd use.
Brilliant, thank you. And the last question that we have there is, John's from a dual club. He's only getting the coaches under 13 footballers once a week, and he's a game every second week. So how does he get the most out of his 90-minute training session? Okay,
right. Well, what he should do, in my view, is there's a couple of things I would do there, right? So 90-minute session is quite a long session, so he's got a lot of time to work on stuff like that. So I would allocate some time there for some sort of probably I won't call it tactical for under 13s, but maybe game awareness and about like game setup and things like that. But as much games as possible. But what I'd also do with them is going back to what we spoke about there in our terms of our blended learning. Like there's lots of things they could do on their own. So for instance, if you give them a task at night, say once before we see you again, you have to practice a little bit on that 30-meter pass. Okay, so you give them a few take-home ideas. So you could dedicate part of your 90-minute session to a kick pass and exercise or activity that the players could carry out on their own. That way you're getting a little bit more bang from your buck, and you could blend that into your sessions. So if they mastered that kick pass, if you let them explore the outside of the boot, the instep, the off the laces, if you let them explore all the different types of kicks, you let them come back with feedback to you of what their favorite kick is, and then you would get them to practice that. And they're doing a little bit of work then, and they're improving that element of their skill that'll make your session a little bit better. So that's what I would do there, if that's any help to John.
That's great. Thanks very much for that. Okay, so that seems to be it. There's no more questions there, Colm. I just want to take this opportunity on behalf of Antrim GA to thank you very much for coming on to our webinar series. It was great. I've recorded it as well, so I'll get it up for anybody that has had any technical issues up onto YouTube as well. But just to thank you on behalf of everybody here as well. I thought it was brilliant and it was very interactive. So thank you very much.
No problem, Matt. And I hope everybody got something from it. Thanks for the invite.
Brilliant. Thank you, now.
Thanks.
Thanks, Colm.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, Colm. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Colm.
Happy enough?
Yeah, it was great. There's still a few people on there, so I'm just wondering maybe if you want to go on to the channel we were on earlier on, maybe to have a quick chat.
Yeah.
Would that be, yeah. I'll do that now.